everybody. My name is LaShawn, and I am a educator at Willow Domestic Violence Center, and there is a trigger warning to this presentation. We'll discuss topics such as rape, sexual assault, and intimate partner violence. Take care of yourself because that can be a pretty heavy topic. And, if you need to take a break or take a step away, that's fine. I just wanted to put that out there. And thank you for letting me come and do a talk. And I'm very excited to do this. Thank you, SRJ. And thank you all for attending. So I have an agenda for my presentation. Review services at Willow. Talk about what reproductive justice is, what is sexual abuse, an activity about consent, and I'll share resources. So Willow Domestic Violence Center has operated for over 40 years, about maybe 43 years in Rochester and Monroe County. And for nearly all of those years, we were called Alternatives for Battered Women. So can anyone either unmute or in the chat, and if the moderators could moderate the chat for me, please. Can you tell me what is the issue with that name, Alternatives for Battered Women? Yes, Juliana.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So first off, they're using the term woman, and not everybody who needs their resources might not identify that way.
Yeah.
Also, second, I noticed the use of the word battered.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it kind of implies that these people are victims, which is you're kind of subscribing an identity to them that they might not, themselves identify with. And I think that it's kind of a term that's going to turn people away from resources. It's going to make it less accessible to somebody by having that term used.
Yes, thank you. And any other things in the chat or anybody else want to share?
Well, mostly everybody is sharing that not all women see themselves as battered, right? Not everybody who experiences abuse is a woman, but not all abuse is of physical nature.
Yes.
And so if you are not necessarily being battered, and that might look different to every single person, that specific word, you may not think that this is for you.
Yes. And we all know, exactly. So in 2016, we changed the name from Alternatives for Battered Women to Willow. And we all know, just like everyone has shared, that not everyone who's experiencing intimate partner violence or domestic violence sees themselves as a victim. Not everyone who is experiencing violence towards them is a woman. So at Willow, we provide services for everyone. So men, women, children, people who don't identify as any gender identity. We help everybody. And we also help our neighboring counties as well. A willow tree, if you know anything about trees, is a very sheltering tree. Large trees, and willow trees are really cool in that when a branch breaks off, that is the seed for a new willow tree. So that is something that's really cool and poetic and powerful in that imagery of the willow tree. And a lot of our imagery that we use will encompass the willow tree. Also, willow it can be someone's name. So for confidentiality or for privacy or for safety, maybe a survivor is putting Willow in their phone, and someone may not know what that is, or it can be the name of someone. So an added level of confidentiality and safety instead of the old name, Alternatives for Battered Women. We also know that There are different types of abuse and abusive tactics, and not all of it is physical violence. So any survivor, so instead of using the word victim, at Willow, we use the word survivor. And any survivor who is experiencing any type of violence, whether it is verbal, sexual, intimate partner violence, emotional, physical violence, or financial violence, all are welcome at Willow. We are the licensed residential and non-residential provider of domestic violence services in our county. Each county in New York, at least, has a provider. There are other providers in Monroe County. However, we have the licensed residential program, meaning we have a shelter. And we have non-residential programs as well, meaning people who don't access our shelter can also use our other services. We are licensed through Office of Children and Family Services. We are Safe Zone certified, which is a designation that recognizes that we help everyone, no matter what their sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation is. And we welcome everyone. We also have services available in ASL, American Sign Language. We have our Deaf Ignite program, which merged, I want to say 2021 with us. It was a separate program because in the Rochester community, we have a large community of people who are deaf or hard of hearing. And we recognize that that was part of a community that needed particular and tailored services when it came to intimate partner violence. Oops. Also, we have services available to people who speak Spanish. Some of our staff speak Spanish, and we have access to hundreds of other languages through our language line. Some of our programs that we offer at Willow, you may know us for our shelter, but we want you to know about our other programs as well. We have the 24/7 hotline, which people can access in many different ways. They can access by calling us. The number is 585-222-SAFE. Text also, and our calling hotline and our texting hotline are always answered by real people, so it doesn't go to an answering service. And those are, safe ways to access us. That's our first line of accessing us. You can also access our hotline through our website, which is www.willowcenterny.org. They have a chat feature on that website where it clears from the browser history if someone has been chatting on there, because we know that sometimes in intimate partner violence situations, electronic monitoring is happening. We also have a way to reach us on our hotline through Facebook Messenger. We like to tell people that that is not a secure way, but that is an option for people if they want to use Facebook. If someone's using Facebook Messenger, we will most likely tell them to contact us through a more secure way, such as our hotline phone number. We have a shelter, so we have room for 49 beds, and often, always, our shelter is full. So if people are seeking shelter or a safe place to be because of intimate partner violence, we don't turn people away from our shelter just, because it's full. They may not be able to come to our shelter if we don't have the room. However, we use community resources to get people to a safe place. We have children's program because, like I said, our programs help everyone, and about half of our residents are children that are in the shelter and half are adults. And the children that come into shelter are with their adult who is taking care of them. We also have pet shelter. So what's unique about our shelter is we can allow up to 3 cats, 2 dogs for our shelter, and other small animals. And we know that having a pet, if a survivor is choosing to leave physically their home and come into shelter, they may have a pet, and that could be a barrier to a person leaving if that's what they're choosing to do. We know that having a safe haven for pets is also very important. We also work with Lollipop Farm to house animals that we can't have in our shelter. We have supporting housing. So people who attended the shelter program and they're looking for affordable housing and with support in the community, we also help with that. We have counseling center. So any survivor who is experiencing intimate partner violence at any point or maybe in the past, and it's causing trauma or things with them, then they can receive counseling. And you don't have to come to shelter or stay in shelter or any of our residential programs to use the counseling center. Throughout COVID, we have some limited face-to-face counseling, but that is available for group and individual. And then we also have come up with creative ways for counseling as well. We have our court advocacy program, which if anybody has been to our court, Hall of Justice, downtown, know that it can be an intimidating place. So, our survivors can come to the court system if they would like to maybe get a order of protection or other legal help because of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. They're not attorneys, but we connect with legal aid and other low-cost legal advice and help. We have our mobile advocacy program because we know that people cannot always come to us. We can come to people in the community where people are safe and they've identified as a safe place for them to get services on the go. And under that is our HEAL Collaborative, which is a collaborative with URMC, the Deaf Ignite, and we have human trafficking program. And then we have prevention education, and myself and team, we go out to different places in the community and we talk about domestic violence. And that is why I'm here speaking at the conference today. All of our services are free and confidential services. Any questions so far? Comments? Okay, so what is reproductive justice? So echo throughout this whole conference, we've learned about reproductive justice. And my task was, how does that fit in with intimate partner violence? And so first, before we talk about, reproductive justice through sexual violence, that issue, I want to talk about the term reproductive justice was coined in 1994 by a group of Black women. So Loretta Ross and others were, doing justice work and felt that Black people were erased from, women's work and things that were going on during that time when it came to human rights and things. So Sister Song was formed and is still in existence today. And that is how reproductive justice came to be. So it is the tenets to have children or not have children and to raise children autonomously in an environment free from violence and reproductive coercion. It encompasses the works of human rights, social justice, and reproductive rights. So again, this is going to be interactive again. So what comes to mind when we think of sexual violence? What is sexual violence? So you can respond in the chat or unmute. So there might be a lot of things that come to people's minds when it comes to sexual violence. I see some things coming in the chat. Yep, so things like, reproductive coercion, taking someone's birth control, assault, any form of assault related to sex, groping, unwanted touching, yes, all of those things come to mind. But a kind of neat and compacted definition is sexual violence is any sexual act or attempt to obtain a sexual act by violence, coercion, acts to traffic a person, or acts directed against a person's sexuality regardless of the relationship to the victim. And I see, yes, stealthing. So we're gonna talk about all of those things. Oops. So of course, I named a few things and you all named a few things, but we're gonna talk about sexual assault, rape, sending or sharing intimate photos or videos. So if you take nudes or a video of something sexual in nature and exchange it in between people or a person, and the agreement is for the person not to share, if that person shares that with whomever they share it with without your permission, that is an act of sexual violence. It's illegal and has legal consequences associated with it. Also, we know that we've heard survivors say that they may have sexual activity or do sexual acts to delay or prevent abuse, meaning that maybe one of the survival tactics for them to survive their abuse is maybe to delay something worse happening to them. Is they may use sex, or they may sorry about that, guys. They may try to prevent or delay abusive episodes from happening, and that is not consent. That is sometimes used as a survival tactic or a technique, and that is not consensual sex. Often an abuser may also force someone into sexual acts with other people or themselves after an abusive episode. Also sex trafficking. So sex trafficking, not to be confused with people who are doing sex work as a choice in their own autonomous way, but sex trafficking of people, and people have no autonomy about their bodies when they're being trafficked sexually, that is an act of sexual violence. And sexual gaslighting. So what do you think I might mean by sexual gaslighting? Anybody? So for example, an abusive partner may ask their partner about things that they are into sexually, so sexual preferences, or things that they may like or dislike. And the gaslighting is the manipulation of that information and causing harm with it. So a person may start to make fun of or humiliate a person because of something that they're interested in doing sexually. Or a person might say, I want you to wear this certain thing or act this way. And they have an abusive reason why they want the person to do that. So it's not like, I want you to do this because this is something that we can do together and explore together, but I want you to do this because I have power and control over you. And I further want to take that power and control away from you. Like maybe someone wearing a abusive partner telling a survivor to wear maybe lingerie, and then they put it on and then they're humiliating the person about it, and saying, why are you wearing that? You may look like this, or you may look like that, derogatory terms. Also, these are just some of the tactics of sexual violence and abuse, but we also need to talk about some of the things that you guys mentioned as well. So reproductive coercion, so meaning that someone is sabotaging birth control. So maybe someone is removing their devices from their body, such as patches or rings. Maybe someone, even in extreme cases, removing someone's IUD. Also, destroying their pills or throwing their pills in the garbage, or, flushing things down the toilet, stealthing, so the act of removing a barrier during sex, that is also sexual violence. Yeah, Jillian, as an educator, thought about sexual violence, yes. Sexual gaslighting, yeah. So, even people who are vulnerable, so we're not even children, but adults who are incarcerated, who are exploited to do sexual acts or raped or sexually assaulted, maybe by another incarcerated person or a person in power, like officers or correctional staff, things like that. Sexual harassment, we want to highlight that. That is an act of sexual violence. Also, so these are all, sorry, my thoughts are like all over the place and I'm a little nervous. These are all examples of sexual violence. Okay, so now that we talked about what that is, what fuels sexual violence? And the answer is rape culture. So rape culture, what is rape culture and how does it contribute to sexual violence? So rape culture states that sexual assault and rape are the norm and it is to be expected and accepted by society. That is what rape culture is. And it is expressed in many different ways through different avenues, such as media, such as, writings and rules, dress codes in schools. That's a part of rape culture. Telling, especially if we, I'm not trying to make it a gendered issue, but having different dress policies for girls and different dress policies for boys. What does that mean and how does that perpetuate rape culture? So we all know this. So everybody knows. What song is this? Anybody?
Blurred Lines.
Yeah, Blurred Lines. So this is not to pick on any artist or style of music or anything, but this is an example of rape culture. So, I know you want it. You want to get nasty, but you're a good girl. So what does that mean? Those are some of the lyrics from that song. Also the imagery in the video. Yes, we are all for people wanting to wear whatever they want to wear on their body. But is there a contrast difference between what the men in the videos are wearing and what the women in the video is wearing in this particular video? Yes. And also, messaging that people have. So yes, the messages do start when we're so young. So, Pharrell, everybody knows he's a great artist and producer and all of that. But, during that same year, he did Blurred Lines, he did Happy. So do we like him? Do we not like him? That's kind of like, playing on the rape culture as well. And I'm not even going to get into the other person in the video and allegations that he has had against him, but Robin Thicke, yeah. This ad, so this is a sandwich from Burger King and it just tastes better. It'll blow your mind away. The BK Super 7-incher. So they're selling a sandwich, but they're selling much more than a sandwich. And this person who is female presenting is, do they have control over what's going in their mouth? Do they have control over this advertisement? So that's an example of rape culture and media. This right here. So how many times do people say to you, hold your keys as a weapon, avoid walking at night, don't use your phone when you're out somewhere, pay attention, bring a buddy, stay alert, carry pepper spray, avoid using your headphones. So these messages are, what people are told in order to avoid sexual assault, when the messages really should be, don't assault people, don't hurt people, don't be violent towards people. And we often get bombarded by these messages, especially women, on how to avoid, being hurt. Yeah. And also, the victim blaming. So, in this pictures, like, why didn't they fight back? They should not have gone home with them. What did they expect was going to happen? Why did they get so drunk? You know, in recent media coverage, we've heard people say, why did they wait so long to come forward? Oh, that person possibly couldn't have done that to someone because they're so popular and they're great, and you know, they have this status in the community or in the culture. But yes, it's happening. So people should not be victim blaming, but that's what rape culture is, instead of holding the people who cause harm responsible. And I do like this shirt right here. I was going to include some other imageries of clothing, but I chose this t-shirt that says, "My clothes don't determine my consent," because that's kind of fighting back against rape culture. And, you know, there are myths that say, you know, what you're wearing is an invitation to be sexually assaulted or have violence perpetrated against you. This is just a plain white shirt, and it says, "My clothes don't determine my consent." So that's very important. Any thoughts or comments? Okay, so now we're going to talk about intersectionality. So sexual violence intersects with a whole bunch of different identities and things in society. This is just a few things that I wanted to highlight. So 9 out of 10 victims of rape are female. So, you know, 90% in America as of 1998, and this is from RAINN, 90% are female, and that's just when we're talking about rape, and 10% are male. We often think that this 10% is higher because people who identify as male may be hesitant to report their sexual abuse happening for a number of reasons. But we do have these statistics here from RAINN. Also, we want to talk about 50% of transgender and non-binary people have experienced sexual violence or will experience sexual violence in their lifetime. And this flag here is represented by a trans community, and this flag here is representing the non-binary community. So we want to highlight that, especially we're talking about trans and gender non-conforming people of color. Sadly, I read a statistic that the average age for a Black trans woman is 35 years old in this country. So what does that say about violence and gender and transphobia and homophobia and all the isms that we have? Age. So something that I wanted to highlight here, and this talk is not necessarily focused on sexual assault of children or sexual abuse of children. We know that it happens. So 15% of people 12 to 17 are sexually assaulted or harmed sexually, and even younger. But I do want to highlight this age group right here, 54%. So about half, a little more than half of people that are experiencing sexual abuse are between 18 and 34, and the majority of sexual assault victims are under 30. So we can even put that into account of, you know, college sexual assault or college sexual violence that's happening. Yes. Yes, and someone said more broadly, femicide, yes. Okay, so race. So anyone of any race can become a survivor of sexual abuse, but we often, you know, we want to highlight the voices and the stories of people of color, especially Black people. Black women have a higher rate of sexual abuse. Also, Indigenous people have a higher rate of sexual abuse compared to white people. There's also myths around sexuality and race from the dawn of time, you know, from 1619 and up until present. You know, there was myths about hypersexuality of Black people, of Black men. You want to highlight Emmett Till. We want to highlight all of our brothers and sisters who, you know, were sexually assaulted or had their genitals mutilated in the South during lynchings, things like that. So I know that that was a lot to digest and a lot of hard stuff to digest. So I just want to take a minute to have a little breather. Yes, we honor our ancestors. Yes, thank you, Jill. And we're going to switch gears now. We talked about the bad stuff. Now we're going to talk about how to prevent it. So what can French fries teach us about consent? So this is what we're going to explore. So this is not my image. This is an image that Planned Parenthood is using and to teach about consent. And one way to combat sexual violence is to educate people that it is preventable. And instead of telling people not to wear certain things, go certain places, or that they need some type of weapon on them at all times to protect themselves against sexual violence, we need to be talking more about consent. We need to talk about what consent is, and a fun and easy way to remember and to learn about consent is called fries. So consent, sexual consent means giving permission to do something sexually. Consent should be freely given. So consent should not be coerced. Consent should not be tried to gain from someone under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or if they're asleep, or if they're sick or incapacitated in any way, they cannot give consent. So we know that in New York State, the age of consent is 17. We also know that teens are having sex that are under 17, but that's important to highlight, because kids and teens under 17 are having sex, but we need to highlight these, specific things that consent should be. It is reversible, meaning people can change their mind at any time, even mid-activity. Even before things get hot and heavy between people can change their mind about consent at any time, and that needs to be respected. Informed means everyone knows what's going to happen during the encounter. So everyone knows what their likes are, dislikes, everyone knows what type of sex they're going to be having, everyone has consented to certain things or put their boundaries out there, and they're respected. And enthusiastic. Sex is something that you participate in. It is not something that just should be happening to you. So enthusiasm, consent should be enthusiastic, meaning that people's body language is saying that they are okay with what's going on. Their spoken language is, their verbal language is saying, yes, I want this to happen in whatever way that a person chooses to express that. It needs to be something that someone is happy about what is happening. Yes, and in the chat, we said, can we talk about dissent? Not everyone knows how to say no, especially femme persons who are socialized and being acquiescent to things. Yes, dissent. So I'm not really sure about that term, but Natalie, if you want to come on and talk more about that, I welcome you to do that.
Oh, I was just wondering, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, dissent is kind of just the opposite of consent, because consent is like, are we to something, whereas dissent is more, no, I'm saying no, I'm backing away from this. And I think that sometimes, we don't always have the language to say dissent to particularly in moments where, you're having a change of mind, or, trying to push back on advances and such. And I mean, not equivalent, but in other spaces, like in the workspace, when you want to say no to something, if you just say outright no, sometimes people regard you a certain way. But I've been looking, and colleagues of mine have been looking, how can you say no, quote unquote, nicely, in that space? But how do we say no in spaces where folks might have been becoming intimate or not? And so that's just kind of what I'm speaking to, is what is the language around how do we say no?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. So, you know, as a society, we are, especially, you know, girls and women, we are socialized to, you know, be polite and sweet and all these other things that happen, and, you know, using your voice. So I think, you know, having people practice with, you know, using their voice, if that's something that they have not had before, or was taken away from them, having people, you know, and we're going to practice today, actually, so thank you for bringing that up. Having people know that it's okay at any point in time to express themselves, and to let people know about, you know, nonverbal language as well, because, you know, verbal language is not the only way that we can express our feelings or thoughts around consent. So thank you for lifting that up. And lastly, the S in fries is specific. So specific, something that people need to talk about when it comes to consent and sex is that people need to know what's going to happen or what can anticipate to happen in specific acts that they may want to participate in or not participate in. So I think that that also comes down to, you know, how to use your voice. How do you say no? And it's just more than just saying no. I hope that was helpful. So again, reiterate, prize, freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. Those are ways to teach us about consent and what consent should be. So now we're gonna practice. I'm not sure if I'm able to see people's, actually I may be able to see people, but if the moderators could help me out with this, you can use a reaction button, so like a thumb up or thumbs down, and you can also use the chat. So I'm going to read scenarios about a wallet. And you're probably like, what does that have to do with consent? But I'm going to read a couple of scenarios about a wallet, and it will help us to communicate about consent and to practice the concept of consent. So can everybody hear me?
You're good to go.
Thank you. So I'm going to read a statement, and then I'm going to give more directions about it. So I have a wallet and it has cash and credit cards in it. What if I give you my wallet and I tell you that you can have everything in it, do whatever you want with it? So after this statement, tell me what you think about me giving you this wallet that has cash and credit cards in it, and I'm saying that you can have everything that's in it and do whatever you want with it. What would you do?
Anybody else going shopping? I am going shopping. I am spending all of that money. And if anybody else is doing anything different, paying bills, student loans that keep trying to come back.
Would anybody not take the wallet? Because when I first did this activity and I was like, someone's giving me a wallet with cash and credit cards in it, I'm not taking it. Yeah, it seems like a trap. Or are you sure? Okay, so let's keep going. All right. Sorry, my computer is really sensitive and it keeps moving. Okay, so what if I give you my wallet and tell you that you can have all the cash, but don't touch the cards? Is that, you can do the reaction now, thumbs up, thumbs down. What would you do? Would you still touch the cards? And somebody said, I'm spending that money. Okay. No, not touching the cards. Okay. What if I give you my wallet and tell you that you can use the cards, but not the cash? Will you touch the cash? Ask follow-up questions. Wouldn't touch the cards. Don't spend the cash. Okay. What if my wallet is in my pocket? Can you just take it out and use it? Nope, 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 none of all the above, okay? No, thank you. If there's money sticking out of my pocket in my wallet, can you just sneak it out? Nope, nope, no, no exclamation point, yes. Okay, what if I'm waving my money in your face? Can you have it? Can you take it? No. Okay. What if we're in a relationship and I've given you my credit cards to use before? Can you use them whenever you want to? I might want it, but it's not mine, not without permission. Annoying, but nope. No. And no, you still need to ask first, okay? What if I'm sleeping or passed out? Do you get to go in my wallet and take what you want and use it? Nope. Not at all. No. Okay. What if I give you some cash, ask me to buy some food, you go all the way out, you're in line about to order the food, and I call and say, stop, I'm not hungry anymore. Don't buy any food. Do you still buy food? Are you annoyed? And lastly, what if we're out and I say, we're planning to spend $75 tonight, and I drink a lot and I say, let's spend everything we have. Will you let me? No, no. Okay. And lastly, what if you have a wallet with cash and cards in it? Can I have it? Can I have $20? Please, please, please. But I gave you 20 last week. You should give me 20 this week. It's just $10. Come on. It's only 10. Please. If you really loved me, you would give me $20. So what did you think of that activity, and what does it have to do with sexual consent? My computer is going crazy. Nope, nope. So just like this wallet, yes, just like this wallet, it's a great activity to get people to understand consent. And someone said a good way to get students to understand consent. Yep. Context matters. Consent is not ongoing and needs to be re-upped. Yes. It reminds me of a high five activity I used to teach to kids. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to respond if somebody discloses that they have been sexually abused or if they are being sexually abused. First of all, believe them. There's a lot of people in the world who are going to ask questions, and people are going to go through scrutiny and things. Just believe them. Ask them how. Ask them if they would like help from you. So don't just jump in and help. Ask them if they want help. People who are experiencing sexual violence, especially from an intimate partner, they may have had their choices taken away from them. So don't take away the choice and automatically help them. Ask them how and if they want help. Don't make any decisions for them. So don't treat it like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go to police. We're going to call this place. I'm taking you to the hospital right now. You must do this. You've got to tell people. You got to do this. You got to press charges. You got to go to court. People have the right to make decisions about what choices they want to make in their own time and whatever choices that they want to make. Support the person's choices. Even if it's a choice that you would make a different choice. Respect that person and support their choices. Don't give advice. Don't say, well, same thing happened to me and here's what I did. Or it wasn't just that bad. You know, it was just this, or it could have been worse. Ask what they need in the moment check in on them, and ask if they want resources. So here are some resources. So Restore is a great resource. They have a 24/7 hotline and more. The Monroe County number is here, and they also service Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, and Wyoming counties. RAIN is a national resource. They have a 24/7 hotline and website where you can do online chat. Bavona. So although we didn't talk about childhood sexual abuse too much during this presentation, but that is a resource for, you know, sexual abuse for children and all types of abuse for children as well. 211 Lifetime. So sometimes a person may be dealing with trauma and being triggered, and they need help with maybe a mental health issue in the moment. There's 211 Lifeline. They can get hooked up with a wealth of different resources, but you know, housing, mental health services, and other community resources. Because people may be experiencing trauma from sexual abuse that may have happened in the past, 211 Lifeline can help deal with some of those other consequences of abuse, so trauma or just basic needs in life. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, so that's for anywhere in the United States. They have a number and they have a text line. And we also have this, You Are Welcome at Willow. You can reach out to us at 24/7, free and confidential. No judgment. Here's our hotline number. Here's our texting number, and Facebook Messenger, and our website. And I'm going to stop the share. And someone said in the chat, all of the therapists at the Rochester Center for Sexual Wellness are equally equipped to treat and support survivors of sexual violence. Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other thought or questions, comments?
Thank you so much, LaShawn. We appreciate you being here. Excuse me. I know this is probably pretty obvious since you said that Willow does support all folks, but since we are really talking about birthing people today, and pregnant folks, I'm sure many folks have, if you have worked with any pregnant or birthing folks, you may not have known that sexual violence may have happened to them prior to, or could be happening to them while they are pregnant. So are there services for pregnant and or birthing folks at Willow?
Yes, so at Willow, we can support people that are pregnant or, you know, have sexual trauma. We try to be trauma informed at Willow. So the way that we, you know, run things here, we try not to re-traumatize people. We are, hold on. At Willow, we offer, you know, lots of services for people. And if we cannot provide the service that a person needs, we refer to them. But yes, pregnant people and parenting people and birthing people are welcome at Willow. And you're right. So pregnancy is, so domestic violence is the #2 cause of death among pregnant people. So it happens. It is happening.
Wow, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
You know, as we talk about maternal mortality, that being a huge subject, specifically in the SRJ world, or if you're working with pregnant folks, mortality and morbidity being one of the issues, I don't think I knew that #2 was domestic violence, right? And it really makes you think about those who are really vulnerable at that moment. I do see something coming in the chat, and I do want to reach out to this, right? So this is coming from Letitia over at SPCC, who is my supervisor, by the way. As a residential counselor at Willow part-time, I offer support services of Healthy Families Monroe, which they are also the program manager of full-time, right? And so thank you so much for sharing that. I saw something else in the chat. Let me just scroll up. Sarah mentioned, if you are not completely zoomed out after today's conference, Planned Parenthood, Restore, and Willow are all hosting a conversation tonight about the intersection about abortion access and intimate partner violence. And it's a great segue from this space. We thank you for all of the work that you are doing, LaShawn, going out into the community and teaching folks about what is going on about domestic violence. And it's a big issue. For those of you who may not have worked with Willow in the past year or were not at any of our community gatherings, if I believe, and LaShawn can probably quote me on this, Willow got about 8,000 phone calls.
Yes.
Last year.
Yep, 2021. We got about 8,000 phone calls to our hotline. Throughout the pandemic, we've seen COVID weaponize people having to, in the beginning of the pandemic, people having to shelter in place with people who may be harming them. Also, in the beginning of the pandemic, not being able to go out and being isolated, and even more isolated, because that is also a tactic of abuse. And last year, the calls keep coming in. We keep hearing about more intense violence happening. And so, yes, it is happening. We are here. And even though it's COVID, we are here for people. We are here for everyone.
Yeah. And, as the folks you work with continue to go upon their life, there are different tactics and different questions that places like Willow are helping, places like URMC or the Rochester Regional folks have questions, right, when they go to the doctor's office or when you see them, to ask questions, because as LaShawn shared in the beginning, not everything is a physical act. I am someone who was pregnant during the pandemic. I actually found out I was pregnant the first week of the pandemic. The isolation is real. And not being able to go anywhere, everybody telling you to stay in if you can, if that is your lifestyle. And when you are in a space where you are so vulnerable, and then you are with a partner who may be violent towards you. Sexual violence, I think of folks who are pregnant and many people saying, well, you're already pregnant, so go right ahead and have all the sex you want. And what that could look like for somebody who may be in some sort of DV situation.
Yeah.
And so if you are, I'm going to, and it's okay if I hope I say this, if you need more information on how to navigate those conversations with your clients, I would, hope you can contact Willow, hope you can contact LaShawn and her team, so that they can help you navigate maybe what sort of questions should me and my team be asking, right? In case something sort of, flies by that just doesn't seem right, right? Or somebody says something to you that doesn't sit right with you, or you see something. It is really important because, LaShawn, would someone who works with a client be able to call the hotline to ask a question?
That's a very good question. Yes. So the hotline is for, people who are working in a professional capacity for survivors as well. So you would call the same number, 222-SAFE. You would say, hey, keep in mind people's confidentiality. So you don't want to say names or anything, but say, hey, I'm working here and I'm working with a person who is experiencing this, or I want to help and I'm not really sure how to help. What advice can you give me? Yes, you can definitely. And if you don't want to say where you work, what your name is, that's okay too. You can say, I'm a member in the community and I have some questions, or I hypothetically have some questions.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us that verbiage, because sometimes that's important, right? Like depending on who we're working with, you know, just looking at some of the folks on the screen, some of us work with teenagers. And even though Willow may not be able to house some of them, right? I know sometimes they do make capabilities to do so. Sometimes working with youth who are going through a, you know, IPV situation is difficult to navigate. Like they're like 14 and you're like, you shouldn't be going through these things, because we have all of our biases. Regardless of how we feel, they're going through something.
Yeah.
And having Willow is great that we can call and ask those questions.
Yeah, there could be some wiggle room around older teenagers. Also, not even if teenagers that are going through domestic violence with their significant other, but even family. So we want people to know that domestic violence, intimate partner violence, domestic violence is not just between partners. It is between maybe adult child harming parents, or parent harming adult child or teen child, in-law abuse. So any situation situations that we probably can't help for are like landlord-tenant abuse or roommate abuse. But yes, we want people to know that it's not just romantic relationships. It can also be family or in-law relationships as well.
Thank you. That's huge. That's huge. I think most of the time when we think domestic violence, we only think intimate partners, right? And if any of us have ever had conversations with youth or with older, specifically like adult teens, that stuff tends to come up and it's almost like, I don't know what to tell you. So thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. If anybody has any other lasting questions, if not, feel free to put all your thank yous for LaShawn for their time. Once again, their email and the hotline information is in the chat, as well as Damien asked.
Does that include in-laws if they're no longer legally in-laws? And I would think yes, because we, we say former or current intimate partner. So I think, yeah, former or current in-law.
Definitely, because I can see how when the break of a relationship can change things in multiple parts of that relationship. Absolutely. As well as if you did not get an opportunity to copy LaShawn's email here or the hotline number, it is already in the program for you. Everyone's contact information is in there. So once again, LaShawn, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you. Everybody giving their kudos.